Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Connect L&D webinar on virtual learning, new learning paradigm. I am Satyakshi from SpringPeople. We are India's largest enterprise training provider. I will be your moderator for today's session. So in today's webinar, we have L&D Guru Deepak Arora, Associate Director for L&D in DXC Technology, who will take us through the need for virtual learning and throw some light on how, in today's rapidly evolving scenario, we are at an inflection point in learning technologies across the globe. If you have any questions during the session, please type it in the chat box and they will be addressed by Deepak after the presentation is over. So without further ado, let's start today's session. Over to you, Deepak.
Thanks, Satyakshi. So, Satyakshi, I hope you have participants are able to log in and attend the session.
Yes,
All that is
yes,
fine.
yes,
Okay, fair.
yes.
Thanks. So, good afternoon, everyone. This is Deepak Arora here. Uh, Although Satyakshi has already given an introduction to on the profile, and you've also read about, but frankly speaking, I'm not a guru, L&D guru per se. I'm more of a practitioner. And when SpringPeople came to me for doing this session, I was more interested from from what I've seen right now in the current scenario that we are in for the last 2 to 3 months, and all of you who are L&D practitioners would have come across multiple sessions, multiple webinars happening across. And our intent here that I wanted to kind of convey is primarily from a L&D practitioner perspective. What is that we are facing? What is it the practical challenges that we have right now in the current environment, and then look at how L&D is reacting to it and how we are working on it. And I want to share my perspective of it. Some of these pieces that I share might be very specific to my organization or my experience. Some of you would have gone way beyond what we discussed today. Some of you might have implemented technology at a very high level, but then this is a forum where we learn from our experiences, and that is my intention at the end. We after this session can continue our interaction, share best practices, discuss on few things. So that's what I want to kind of uh, give my perspective to how the virtual learning has got impacted, and what is the new learning paradigm from a virtual learning perspective. Now, having said that, I think something which came from a closet, a book which has been there with us. We have been seeing this book for a pretty long time. Even I had it dusted lying somewhere, and I was pulling it out a couple of months back and just tried to look at its relevance right now. And this is all about change management. And I don't know whether, I think most of you would have seen or read this book or heard about it. Primarily talks about a small world in which there's a lot of cheese available in a maze, and there are four kind of profiles, four people, two mice and two little people who kind of work their way through looking for this cheese. But what is very important is the whole thought process and how people are reacting to it, how individuals react to this particular situation, and how you can make the change. So what is very important for us, if you look at one of the key learnings which came from there, was the quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy the new cheese. And that comes with our L&D mindset also. We are pretty used to a particular mindset of learning, and this particular discussion today, I just want to encourage you to come out of that comfort zone and look at avenues which could change your perspective completely. That is what I want to kind of bring about through this particular session. Now, from a milestone perspective, couple of aspects that we're going to deal with today. First of all, who moved my virtual learning, like who moved my cheese, who has moved my virtual learning, which I have been used to doing, the learning technology inflection point. How do I look at this virtual environment in which I am in right now, in a situation where I'm working from home? I have employees working from home, and how do I bring about using technology and impact their learning. The third thing which I want to deal with is persona as the king. I'll get into those details. And lastly, on the fact that the learning and development function itself has to evolve to imbibe the key learnings out of this, and how it has to change, how your thought process has to change to bring about a more effective learning and development team. So having said that, who's moved my virtual learning? I guess this is a current situation we all are in, so I don't want to get into those details. Everyone knows the reasons and also what is happening. But what has changed for an individual is that working from home has become the new normal. I mean, all of us are in some way or the other for the last 2 months working and trying to grapple the situation and work from home. The entire family, for that matter, is on the virtual platform. Our homes are getting reconfigured. uh, Even the work from home furniture has to change in our homes now. There is need for more wi-fi, there is need for more devices, and obviously um, this entire thing has brought about a change in the way we do things. And this is where we see a lot of these different kind of challenges which are coming in right now. Some of them, what you're seeing on the screen, are some things that all of us from a learning and fraternity might come across. Yes, just want to make a statement here that for me, it's I come from a IT consulting kind of an organization, so some of these aspects will be related to the problems faced in a technology organization, but a lot of these could be applied anywhere as well. So some of them are very pertinent, some of them are very basic out here. For example, am I audible? The voice is muffled, I cannot see your screen. I mean, these kind of things you would have encountered on a day-to-day basis on any kind of meetings. But what is more important now is that I need to get a complete change in the way people are coming to us for learning. I'll just give you a simple example. The fresher trainings that we used to do in the past, our campus grads who join us, there was an extensive training through boot camps, through long-term learning platforms, but there's a element of human intervention. We had instructors who were conducting training program. There was a lot of hands-on elements, and suddenly, if you need to recruit right now people, and that to freshers, you will have to look at a different perspective to this learning. The entire learning has to move into a virtual mode. That is one aspect. But then also the questions which are coming into us is, hey, I have where do I look for learning? How much of this in your learning ecosystem, where do I kind of pull out the right content for my role? Is there a place where I can go and select the right skills? If I am moving into a role, can I get the right learning paths for me? The software team comes back and says, hey, this content is pretty outdated, why is this lying in our system? Why don't we have the latest version of these trainings? That is also something that needs to be looked at from our perspective, and these are some problems that we are facing right now, all of us. I'm sure you can correlate with most of these problems, and that is where we need to look at seeing the virtual learning from a different mode altogether. Um, we have been doing training programs, and one of the sessions like these that we are doing right now, which is in a synchronous mode, where we have a group of people join, and I'm talking out here and you're listening to me, which is a monologue which is happening right now. We are used to this kind of virtual learnings. We are used to instructor-led trainings. We are used to virtual instructor-led trainings, and a lot of these various modalities of learning that we have come across. And virtual training is not something new at all. But what has changed now? What has moved this virtual learning? Obviously, the fact that now I need to look at making my learning, which was in an instructor mode, move into a virtual platform and still be effective. Can I look at doing a apple to apple comparison between instructor led training and an e-learning module? Obviously, the answer is no, I cannot. And I have to look at various modalities of learning which combine both synchronous and unsynchronous kind of learnings together. So that's the reason why the need for blended learning has become very prominent for all of us. And it is not just prominent, it is the need of the hour. It is something that we should all be working towards. And some of the organizations have matured this to a greater level, some of us haven't. But what I want to kind of showcase here is the fact that this particular inflection point that we were going through in the learning and development space was also evident in the way learning technology was changing for all of us. Some of you would have been in this learning space for maybe 5 years, 10 years. I've been looking at this industry for the last 20 years from a technology perspective. And what I have seen, what I have worked with, we started with just, I mean, for the first time when learning moves to the computer, we had these computer-based trainings, which were in form of CDs, which were available. And they were pretty novelty that point of time. And then we saw a huge range of advancements within technology, and the same thing applied to the learning technology landscape as well. So we had virtual learning, which became prominent over a period of time. We had content development tools which were coming together. um, the kind of standards which were put together across within the learning space, whether it is AICC, whether it is COM, whether it is LTI, where you can have multiple learning platforms communicating with each other, or for that matter, some other standards which finally died down a gradual death also. But overall, this is what you saw as a complete change in the last so many years. But when I see the last 2 or 3 years time frame, I see suddenly the learning technology curve suddenly has moved, trends towards moving upwards. And what we are seeing right now is there's a huge amount of change, because our industry, our business started using digital. Our business started creating more applications which could be communicating with each other. Our bandwidth speed increased. Our way of watching videos changed drastically. We moved from a simple phone to a digital kind of a environment on the phone itself, smartphones that we call them. So obviously, the way business was changing, L&D was also getting in kind of evolved on this particular journey. And as artificial intelligence, NLP, picked up, in fact, we were hearing about AI for a pretty long time, but now the way industrialized AI has picked up, its applications in the learning and development space are showing big time results. And we'll talk about it somewhere in the next couple of slides. And then obviously what you're seeing now is an exodus of various technologies which have come in right now. You have artificial intelligence, machine learning, which is going to be one of the big contributors in changing the way we learn. We have XAPIs and learning record stores. They're going to change the way we can get granular data about learning. And then analytics, chatbots, learning experience platforms, and virtual reality. In fact, the way virtual reality will be looked at will be way different than what we have been seeing so far. Now, I'll talk about those areas in blue in the next couple of slides. But what I want to kind of stress upon is beyond this is the fact that, hey, we had these instructor-led trainings, we had e-learnings in the past, we have it now as well. It's not in the past, but we have it now. But if you look at the way these were applied, you had instructor-led trainings which were slightly expensive, because you had to get a trainer, you had to have a training room set up, you had to block 5 days or 10 days of learning, get individuals with their billable productive hours, they moving into a training program for 5 days. And then obviously the fact that you need to have a trainer whose job will be full time to kind of share that knowledge with you. Obviously, in this case, what is also important is that that person who has the experience is right in front of you. So knowledge is primarily in the experience and mind of the trainer. So you are extracting that knowledge from the trainer in an instructor-led program, which is very basic. All of us know about it. E-learning, yes, uh, everyone knows about e-learning, and we have been kind of imbibed into the whole idea that e-learning is something which is just in time, learn anytime, anywhere, those kind of words which are being used. But there's some negative feedback which is also coming, is the fact that it's boring, it is not practical. You cannot replace it to a instructor-led training. But then the question also arises is the fact that why are we doing a comparison at all? It's not an apple to apple comparison at all. These two areas are way different, are are completely taking care of different kind of problems to be solved in the learning space. So I think what is important here for all of us to understand is that uh, you know uh, we cannot look at just saying that I used to do instructor led training in the past, now I'm in a virtual platform, so I'll do something like e-learning or create a Zoom session and conduct a training program. Wouldn't work, because the fact is that if I look at a instructor led training program, we were in a room and we were learning with the trainer. But in an e-learning environment, I cannot expect that person to be there attentive in front of the machine for almost 6 to 8 hours. It cannot be the same. You need to look at e-learning from a different perspective altogether. um, you need to understand the fact that this particular modality of learning, where you do in virtual environment or using Zoom or MS Teams or Skype, that the current system forces us to use, the current scenario forces us to use, might not be the only way to do learning, because it is not an effective way. It cannot ensure that the participants who are attending this particular training have an attention span for the entire duration. And that is where there's a different approach that needs to be taken in a virtual learning space. And that is the reason why now we are looking at these learning modalities on the right that you're seeing out here getting more and more prominently applied in our organizations. A couple of us would have taken some of them to the next level. Some of these ones would be at the initial stages, but let me just highlight on each one of them with just a view to it. See, when it comes to asynchronous learning, the whole idea is that you are not just using a kind of a e-learning training and you're putting a learning structure together. The idea is to look at the need or a problem that you need to solve through this particular training, and then try to see how can you structure a program, how can you create a learning journey for an employee, and what kind of assets that you're going to be using it for them. And for that matter, e-learning could just be a resource in this asynchronous program. When I look at a resource, let's understand this thing also very clearly, that I mean, learning can come from various modalities. Just a thought, just a question out here would be that if I were to kind of ask all of us, what is the learning modality that we use on a daily basis when I'm working, and what is it that quickly gets me the right kind of information that I need, or that kind of learning that I need? The answer predominantly will be Google. It will not be anything else. So the way employees and everyone looks at learning is very important to understand that it will not be just going to a e-learning module and doing a program. It will have to be a combination of set of various resources, and that is where the whole planning of asynchronous training is very important. What you're trying to do primarily is you're trying to use a combination of synchronous, some of it you're trying to use some of contextual learning, that you're going to be creating content to. It could be a PDF file, it could be a video, it could be an assessment, it could be some other kind of content altogether which you want to use for this particular learning. But at the end, what is important is that you are clear on your objective of this training, what you want to achieve at the end of the training. That's going to be very important, and that's where in this virtual environment that we are in right now, it is very important for you to understand that um, these kind of models will change the way virtual learning is happening. And it will not just be going into LMS and doing a learning program. It will not work that way. And as a learning and development fraternity, we'll have to think about it. So blended learning is again a combination. It's kind of a synchronous kind of a combination of asynchronous, synchronous put together. But moving ahead to adaptive learning, this has also been there for pretty long time. But I think the adaptive learning piece will now, combined with technology, will be a very effective tool for all of us. I'll give you an example of it. I mean, if I look at a sales training, and in a sales training, I want to kind of uh, give an employee, a salesperson, an environment that if there are 3 or 4 different situations, and how you're going to deal with it, and what kind of reaction would it need, and what kind of communication would it need, you need to work out a strategy for it, and you need to create different pathways for different kind of responses. I think the adaptive learning piece would be really helpful there to understand this entire scenario and be able to change the course of learning as per the needs of a requirement of a situation. So adaptive learning in in different scenarios could prove really help, not for everything, but in some of the scenarios where especially it is more of a people dependent interaction, a negotiation kind of environment, a sales kind of environment, adaptive learning will really work well. And in fact, in areas of technology also, when you want to kind of change the level of uh, level of training itself, depending upon the knowledge of a particular individual, adaptive learning would change accordingly, and that brings in a level of personalization, customization for an employee, which can prove to be very effective. Moving ahead, the whole idea of instructional designing to learning experience designing is one more area that will be also very pertinent here, important here. We have been used to the fact that there's an instructional designer who will create who will storyboard a whole set of requirement, put a e-learning module together using Articulate, Captivate, or something else, and at the end of it, deliver a e-learning module which is a SCORM compliant object and upload it into a LMS, and we can track learning through the learning management system. But is that an effective way of doing it? I mean, when I see right now in our learning ecosystems in all organizations, we have been doing this instructional designing for a pretty long time. We have been creating and building a repository of content which we expect our employees to use, and sometimes they don't even know where it has to be launched from. But at the end, you expect that, hey, I as a learning and development team get a requirement, I'll package a learning quickly, record a video, create some simulation, and at the end of it, give this to the learner and expect the learner to go through it. But is that the way the learner wants to learn? Maybe not. Maybe the learner has a different mindset altogether. A learner wants this training to happen at the point of need and able to contextualize in the right manner. And also, does it cater to the aspirations of the learner? That's a very important component. So when it comes to the modalities of learning, one more thing which needs to change now is the whole idea of instructional designing, where it looks at just gathering requirement and working on it, to understanding the persona of an individual, understanding what are the needs of an individual, understanding the fact that I, as an individual who wants to learn and I'm busy in my day-to-day interactions, I need to access content quickly, and relevant content should be available to me in the flow of work. I am hoping you all have heard the word flow of work, because Josh Berson's has been talking about it for last couple of years, and we are seeing a lot of discussion around this. But what is important for us from a learning and development fraternity is, when a requirement comes to us, do we start collecting the objectives of the learning, or do we start collecting what is the performance outcome at the end of it that you expect to change? That is a very important component and question to ask. And uh, and that is where we need a big change out here. See, understand, I mean, look at the way things are right now. You as a, I'm not saying that it applies to all of us, but a lot of us in the learning fraternity would go and first gather the requirement, and typically a learning need identification is done, and then you look for learning assets, and finally uh, track how many people have completed these learnings. So the mindset is of learning hours, not of what kind of learnings and what number of learnings people have looked at and done. Obviously, technology inhibits the way you're able to capture this data, but then there are options available right now. But I think what is important here is to kind of look at the traditional approach uh, has to change, and that is where we need to understand that someone has moved our cheese, someone has moved our virtual learning, and we need to change in this environment uh, to bring a better structure to this learning. And let's remember one thing, in a learning experience design, you have to think through the fact that, hey, this is the learner, this person has aspirations, and this person wants to get trainings quickly, and this person is a millennial, this person is within our organization, different kind of generations, and this kind of learning would be the most effective one for them. But also to look at what roles they are into, that's very important. So obviously the learning will have to have more interactions in a virtual mode, it has to have more visuals in a virtual mode, it has to has more engagement in the virtual mode. That's a very important thing. Flip learning is an excellent example of this, from the way we want to kind of move into a virtual learning environment, bring about that change. And this is where even we have experimented with it, and it has worked really well, to a certain extent, not everywhere. See, success and failures come in across all these things. There's always something which comes as a learning from one training which moves to the other. But what we have seen as a flipped learning advantage is that we are able to get good experienced people who have the right amount of experience and skill set and who've seen practicalities of what happens in a problem situation, and they are able to create that kind of expertise and give those kind of answers. So in a flipped classroom or a training, what we are taking advantage right now is the fact that, hey, I will still refer you to some resource of learning available somewhere, whether it could be a video, it could be a e-learning module, it could be some other document to read, but you should come prepared with this in the learning environment. We might do some kind of an assessment with you to look at whether you fit the bill for moving into this module and being part of this training. And then we move into the whole thought that this expert who comes in will solve your real life problems. So what we do is we take a couple of business problems and we try to solve them in that particular training environment, which is a more effective application of the knowledge. And the whole idea of experiential learning stays with the user, or sorry, stays with the participants for a much longer time. All of us know the Abinos, forgetting curve, which says clearly a training which is just, post the training, almost within the next 30 days, most a major chunk of the learning that is forgotten. But also there is another principle that we also have seen is 70-20-10, and we are aware of what 70-20-10 is. What is most important is that the experience piece of it, the working on that environment, getting interactions and doing real life problem solving, that experiential learning piece stays with an individual for a very longer time rather than just a learning which was of 5 days. So uh, I thought I'll stress upon these things right now because these are the things which are changing the way our virtual learnings are maturing now, and they are pushing us to move to a different direction altogether, and also forcing us to relook at our learnings. But I want to bring in one more point which is very important on this particular slide, is the fact that you should not start with technology in mind, that this is the technology I use, and then try to create a solution, which is not a right approach. You think that, okay, I'll now implement a learning experience platform without even having to think through that whether you need a learning experience platform or not. So Don't start with an approach of technology implementation. What is very important is that you will first look at the problem. What is the performance goal that you want to achieve at the end of it? Technology is a medium, is a catalyst to achieve it. You might not have to create a fancy presentation or a fancy e-learning module to achieve your goal. It could be achieved by a single PDF document as well. But what is important is how you have structured this training. So don't start with the technology in mind. And this is from my personal experience. We have faltered. We thought, hey, let me look at X API as the buzzword, but let me just start implementing X API. Doesn't work. What you have to look at is first of all the business problem, and then focus on what is the solution for it and whether technology will play a catalyst in that. So this is where we come to the various catalysts for virtual learning. uh, I'll be dealing with each one of them from a practical application perspective. Some of it you might have utilized in your organizations, but I just want to kind of look at these ones from what we have seen. Some of places we have success stories, some of places we have failed as well. It's not that everyone succeeds on the first try, but there's been a good experiential learning for us in implementing these. And in today's scenario, I think for all of us who are there in this call, most of you must be from the learning fraternity. It is good to take risks. It is good to try out few of these things and try to see if it is effective. Start with one of those areas, problems that you want to solve, and can you apply these technologies where you have an understanding of it. So let's just look at what each of them kind of from an application perspective mean for us from a learning fraternity, and especially in the virtual learning space. X APIs and learning record stores is a buzzword. Couple of years it's been going on. Uh, a lot of discussions are happening. Some of are some of it are success stories. Some of it might be also the fact that you tried but couldn't get through this at all. So what you need to understand is what is the application of it? How does this help? See, X APIs go beyond the whole idea of APIs, which primarily help us in two applications being able to either share data or do something. X APIs are looking at a content and getting analytics on how the learner is using that content. It provides you a freedom from what kind of workflow in which you are learning. It provides you freedom from which kind of device is this coming from. What is important here is that you are getting granular data from a learning object and able to do analytics out of it. I could look at, for that matter, just an example. I have created an e-learning module, and I know that in this e-learning module, there are a set of data points, there are a set of slides, some visuals, some quiz in it, and I've created this complete module. But I want to evolve this and take it to the next version based on some improvement. One improvement is go to the users and ask for improvement. But the second improvement is how X APIs can help me out. So X APIs can send me a granular data of how much time was spent on a particular section of learning within it. How many times did this person try out the quiz? Which of these learning things are boring and I know that individuals are not spending time on it? And this day kind of data will help me evolve and change my program, change the course of the program, make learning more adaptive in nature, which could be really useful for our learning and development fraternity and can bring about effectiveness in learning. It could be done for lot of areas, and it's not dependent only on one kind of learning object. It could apply to various elements, videos, documents, and other things as well. It's just a matter of the right information which could be then thrown back into the learning record store, and analytics could be done out of it. But what is important in this thing is you start with one POC at a time to see if you want to gather information and the right relevant information, because sometimes you tend to collect a lot of analytics and junk out of this without a thought process of what exactly I'm going to analyze out of this and what is it I'm going to do with it. So what is important in this scenario is that you should always look at the fact that what is that I want to track, what is that I want to kind of um, capture from a data perspective, from an analytics perspective, and it really works. That's the best part. The kind of information it throws back will help you in designing your content more effectively. That's about like XAPIs and LRS. um, we see almost 50 to 60% of organizations might have not even started this journey, but a lot of platforms that are, whether it is learning management systems, now support XAPIs. And there are plenty of learning record store options in the market available, from expensive to the cheapest ones. And you have options to try out these. Second thing which has become very prominent right now is chatbots. We have seen very limited application in learning, but we have seen better application in talent management, especially in talent management space, where you're looking at um, giving employees the various job structures, the career pathing which is which is required for them, something that they could take advantage within an organization basis a huge amount of data and analytics and artificial intelligence which sits in the back end. Chatbots right now are everywhere. Whether you refer to whether you go to a banking application or a product uh, website, they are giving you a chatbot which chats with you and tries to solve your problem. But chatbot has a lot of application in the L&D fraternity as well, especially in guiding employees to the right skill sets and its related learnings. So if you are looking at learning on a day-to-day basis and you have a specific preference for specific skills, I think your chatbots can direct you to the right set of learning assets. They could be there on your desktop, on your on your laptop, on your screen there itself, and keep guiding you. So as you work, as you continue working in the flow of work, you could be referenced or directed to the right kind of learning. Um, we have tried this out. We have seen a lot of success there. But yes, some of these things depend on also the data in the back end. It's very important to look at that data basis which the success of chatbots depend on. Um, One more thing which I want to kind of address here is you should look at the IBM Mica. Mica is one of the IBM offerings from Watson family, and that's a classical example of this, especially in the career development framework. Chatbots are being applied there, so that's a very excellent example. Then comes learning experience platform. Uh, a learning experience platform has come as a layer above or an advancement to a learning management system. A lot of us would have implemented these in our organizations, but just to kind of bring everyone at the same level, a learning experience platform enhances the user experience for learning uh, from the traditional LMSs. So the way LMSs work so far, LMSs have been more of kind of source of data, source of tracking our learnings, reporting. Some amount of analytics resides in these learning management systems, but they don't give you the right user experience. But yes, the trend is changing. Somewhere down the line, maybe 1 or 2 years down the line, you might see a merger of LMS and LXPs together, which definitely is already started. But the whole idea of LXPs is Netflixing of learning, but using intelligence in the backend, AI, ML, a couple of other things which are being implemented in the backend in the LXP, where it makes easy for curation of content as well. So the whole idea of curating channels for you, curating content for you, will be done in an automated mode. So in this scenario, you are able to get learning to the right audience directly and be able to personalize it. What is very important is personalization out here. Um, on the basis of my areas of interest, on the basis of what I like, which are the areas that I would want to build my competencies on, the learning experience platforms will give you the right channels to be able to take up that journey, which is more relating to my requirement, which is more relating to something which I need as a person working in an organization. I have specific aspirations and I would select what is it I want to learn, not what organization dumps me with. So the whole idea of the training calendars and the whole idea of putting learning structures like that would change over a period of time. Now it will be directing employees to the learning, a set of learning, and let the employees decide how they want to learn. And the whole concept of self-directed learning comes to realization out here. That's what a learning experience platform does. Personalization is one, but yes, I would use the word which a lot of places, LXPs as an example is used, is the Netflixing of learning. You select genre of trainings that you want, and on that basis it gives it to you. It also gives you that whole idea of elastic search. On the basis of what you have searched in the past, it will give you relevant content. It keeps showing you the most relevant, most popular content to you directly. That's also something which uh, is really useful, and especially in this virtual learning where you want to kind of still look at bringing a lot of personalization which was happening in an instructor-led program. I think this piece of learning experience platform which is trying to personalize it will play a very vital role in bringing effectiveness to learning. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and NLP have been there. In a lot of places, they come in the backend side. But for example, LXPs would use our AI, chatbots would use AI. But what is important to know here is that LXP, as far as AI is concerned, the application of AI in the learning and development space is increasing tenfold. And as we see now, in the next couple of years, you will see AI in every single of the learning applications that we use. From a simple task like content tagging, because I want to ensure that content is searchable and available to our employees on the basis of certain categories. I want to do tagging of all my content that gets created in my ecosystem. And that is where AI plays a very vital role. AI in combination with ML uh, kind of brings you the tagging and the recommendation thing put together. So over a period of time, it creates a personalized journey for you. Tagging right now, I think has already reached a stage where it's matured. Personalization also has matured right now. A lot of organizations are using it. Recommendations are working right now. Gap analysis is one more area which it will play a very vital role, especially the fact that, hey, I have a set of skills. I mean, look at AI in a platform where it looks at my skills in LinkedIn and tells me this is the role that I'm doing in my organization, and then tells me the fact that, hey, I lack these skills, and so many people with that kind of skill set in the market, but you don't have these skills, and this is what you need to develop, will be an excellent and effective personalized kind of a context to learning for an employee. So I think that whole piece of contextualizing the learning will come through this particular technology. You are able to direct employees to the right set of content, would really mean that you are taking care of the learning needs. So if I were to look at a Google, what it does for me right now for referring me to something to be done very quickly, AI will play that role in the learning environment. So in the learning ecosystem that you are evolving within your organizations, AI has to be looked upon as one of the key contributors out there. Um, Data analytics. I think most of us are aware of data analytics, the way it helps. But what is important is also the visualization component of it. So data analytics combined with visualization will give you a very effective mechanism to take decisions, be able to predict learnings for yourself, for your organization. Uh, we uh, we have been trying to use data analytics for various reasons, but just to give you an example of how this could be utilized from an analytics perspective, you can combine your human capital data with the learning data to look at how your top performers are doing, what kind of learning are they doing, what kind of performance a level. I mean, I'm just taking a level 1, 2, 3, 4, level 1 being the highest. How are level 1 doing training programs, level 2 doing training programs? and what kind of trainings have been done in the past with these people. So over a period of time, you are able to build a kind of intelligence into your analysis of what you have, what kind of deliver, what kind of stuff you can deliver to your L&D, from an L&D perspective to the business. When you have conversations with the business, you are having a conversation on competency strategy for them, but you're able to also able to tell them, hey, you have these many requirements which are showing in your resourcing system, and these are the skills that you are asking for development. Is this the right approach? That kind of conversations will make you a trusted advisor to the business, and that is where the analytics will play a vital role. And yes, in the virtual environment where you are able to capture all these learnings that are happening right now from your employees, this will be a very effective tool. The last three, I'll just take 5 more minutes on this, then we'll kind of look at Q&A for this. But the last three are very much there. Social learning, I think a lot of organizations using social learning to kind of look at unstructured kind of learning, some kind of important learning options, announcements, sharing of problem situations. I'll just give you a simple example. um, this kind of environment where within our organization, if we have a social learning environment, and I know there are people, experts looking at this, I can get my problem solved. There are forums which are available within my organization where I can primarily put a problem and get some solutions by 3 4 different people who are experts in their areas. And that could be done in a social environment. I mean, the whole Facebook workplace thing really can be a very effective tool. Virtual reality going forward, especially in the manufacturing space, especially in space where it needs simulation, um, is currently kind of already taken up quite a few areas in virtual reality, especially the whole idea of augmented reality, extended reality across. But what is important in this scenario for virtual reality is that for us, uh, this would be an effective tool to actually bring in a change in the way learning is done. Very limited exploration has been done in some areas so far, but I'm sure you can create a good onboarding experience for employees through a virtual reality by taking through the office, let them meet leaders through that. I mean, this is a very simple thing, because right now in this kind of environment where we are facing challenges of moving to offices, why can't we use virtual reality for onboarding? A great tool, in fact. Podcast, everyone is aware, so I'm not talking about that right now. Um, the next thing which I've already spoken about from a persona based learning, or persona is the king, but I want to kind of just highlight a couple of points out here. That our current thought process from a learning perspective has been oriented towards creating libraries of content, catalog of content, creating brochures, creating learning academies, hosting content of LMS on LMS, tracking, reporting, and then the whole click next thing which is there in our learning design. But that needs to change, because now a better effective tool for us will be to look at how our individuals want to learn, and we can deliver better outcomes there. So the whole persona based learning, or uh, a human centered approach to designing learning, is is a skill that will be developed, needs to be developed within all of us. How much are we able to contextualize training? uh, just understand this, the reason for this also. um, at present, no, when we look at the past learning, the knowledge used to reside in the minds of the trainers, but knowledge now is on the network. You have huge amount of content available internally, whether it's also externally in YouTube learning, whether it is MOOCs. But what is important is, how can I contextualize this learning? How can I make this learning relevant for a role within my organization? I have employees who are of a specific group. Let's take an example, architects, and they face a typical set of 5 or 6 different challenges. Can I create, can I understand what is their persona, what is that they want to learn, and then create learnings on the basis of their personas? That component will bring in a big pull factor than a push factor to learning. So the whole piece of learning as an event will change to learning as a journey. And in this journey, you are not going to be tracking number of hours. You're going to be looking at the efficacy of it. Your metrics will change over a period of time. And this is where the learning and development fraternity has to evolve their skills. The whole idea of empathizing, the whole idea of being able to ask relevant questions, be able to think in the way business thinks is going to be really important. Wearing their hat will be very important to approach this entire design. But you should try to pilot with a couple of them. We have seen effectiveness coming through persona based learning. We've seen that if you are able to correlate to a set of roles and problem situations and employee faces and be able to associate learnings, that brings in the relation to that learning, association to that learning, and be able to drive it more effectively. Now, having said that, uh, just the last piece on the whole, the learning and development function, its skills, and what is the new normal for us. I just want to kind of bring to focus that there are a lot of these capabilities related, for example ATD, Association of Talent Development, or the LPI. um, these different organizations, they kind of benchmark what kind of skills are needed for L&D professionals. What I've tried to look at is, from my perspective, when I see the persona of L&D practitioner, and what kind of artillery does this L&D professional need for 2020 and beyond, couple of these things play a very prominent role for me. I see from a virtual learning environment, the whole piece of being able to create human centric learning through emotional intelligence will be a very important component. The technology application is something which will also bring in which will bring in a major change in the way capabilities of a learning and development team is looked upon. uh, for us in this space, we need to have a better understanding of technology methodologies, whether it is design thinking or agile methodology, because that's something business is using. But this has come into learning and development. I think from what how we manage our initiatives, if we are also able to create those minimum viable products and have the right sprints to achieve a solution and work with our internal clients and enhance on a solution, will bring in a better result because you're talking their language. The business contextualizing piece again bring is coming into prominence, because now you need to become a trusted advisor to your business. You need to be able to offer consulting solutions, performance consulting, and if you need to design trainings for them, you need to be able to contextualize learning for them. And obviously, yes, that involves continuous learning for a learning and development person, himself or herself as well. And lastly, the data analytics piece, which is primarily understanding the data and how are you able to drive intelligence out of this data? How are you able to do analytics and be able to predict something out of this data will be a very important component for our L&D practitioner. So in this virtual world, in this virtual learning, in this the way we are working right now, the L&D practitioner now has a vast avenue of learning, experimenting, trying out few things. I wish all of you best of luck on trying out few of these things. Please do try. Try to see if you have some POCs. We can obviously share some stories out of this, success stories out of this. That is what finally I want to kind of deliver. It's something which we learn from each other. Some of these things you would have already practiced, but nevertheless, thank you very much for giving me time to put this together for you. Over to you, Ravi.
Uh,
Thank you, Deepak, for your invaluable insights on virtual learning. I'm sure it was certainly a very beneficial session for all of you. I would now like to invite Ravi Kaklasaria, founder and CEO of SpringPeople, to briefly talk about L&D Cloud, our enterprise learning platform, which can help you facilitate virtual learning. So over to you, Ravi.
uh, Thanks, Satyakshi. Am I audible? And is my
Yes, yes,
screen
you are.
visible? Yeah, and is my screen visible, Satyakshi? Can you confirm,
Yes,
please?
yes,
Great,
yes.
awesome. Thanks so much, Deepak. I think that was quite insightful. Though being in learning space, enterprise learning space for past 11 years, I think I definitely got some very useful insights from this entire talk that you gave, especially on how the learning has to be driven in this new normal, this new reality, and how the virtual learning doesn't just ends with kind of live online classroom. It's so much more beyond that. We have been trying XAPIs and LXPs and a few other things, but your talk was quite insightful. Thank you so much, Deepak, for that. Quick intro about myself and SpringPeople. My name is Ravi, CEO and founder of SpringPeople. Have been, started my journey as a tech guy in 2000, and then moved on to a learning, which was quite interesting to solve a lot of challenges which I faced when I was on the other side of the table, consuming the learning. And that is when I founded SpringPeople back in 2009. For last 11 years, we have been totally into enterprise learning space with 100% focus on serving enterprises. I think the who's who of Indian IT, we are serving them. Coming to L&D Cloud, echoing Deepak's thought, he mentioned that it's very important to look at business first, and then let technology be catalyst. And that is exactly what we try in SpringPeople. Our platform L&D Cloud has been built bottom up for enterprises. Every single nut and bolt, every single wire that goes into L&D Cloud has been cut specifically for enterprises. Unlike a lot of other platforms that you'll find in the market, which were earlier made for retail segment, for individual learners, for job seekers, and now being made enterprise ready, being customized for enterprises, L&D Cloud was made right from scratch for enterprises. Any of the feature you talk about, whether it's the learner experience, the courses, the content, the entire learner journey in terms of micro contents, projects, pop-up quizzes, assessments, hands-on demos, evaluation, pre-training assessment, a lot of things that is very specific to enterprises are available there on L&D Cloud. Also, we can talk about cloud labs, gamification, and a lot of other features, reporting, enterprise grade reporting, analytics, dashboard, spend analysis, a lot of other things, notifications. So everything is for enterprises. But today I want to focus on a specific use case of L&D Cloud, which is basically running VILTs using L&D Cloud, because that is the current challenge being faced by a lot of enterprises. So L&D Cloud can be used very effectively to run VILTs. I'm sure a lot of you would acknowledge that VILT is not just a training session or a trainer session over one of these web conference tools, MS Team or GoToWebinar or Zoom or one of these guys. It's a lot more than that, where the learners and the participants need to collaborate, exchange their documents, exchange reference materials, create quizzes, create projects, do evaluation, a lot of things. And that is where L&D Clouds comes very strongly into picture to help run these complete programs and not just those live sessions. It acts as a wrapper, a huge wrapper, a very effective wrapper around those live sessions. Let me walk you through that. So this very high level kind of thing where it kind of illustrates how VILTs can be run. Let me take you guys to the platform. This is an admin dashboard because mostly this is what you guys will be looking at. First of all, let's look quickly at how a particular session would look like. Unfortunately, we don't have a live session running right now, so I can't walk you through that. Let me take you through the admin session. You can run your instructor-led sessions, VILTs. You can monitor how those sessions are going, who are the learners there, what is their completion ratio, what they are doing, what are their activities, how they are progressing, what courses they are doing, what are the various teams, managers, a lot of reports, course completions, feedbacks, a lot of things around, when you're running VILT, when you need to really help your participants collaborate with each other, The platform will help you do that to really run the VLT sessions effectively and monitor and manage your programs and track the learner progress. I really am tempted to delve deeper into this, but I am also aware that I have limited time. Uh, I think been given only 5 minutes slot, so I think I'll have to take a pause. I'll be happy actually to answer any specific query with respect to L&D Cloud, and then hand it over back to Deepak for further Q&As. Is there any specific query related to L&D Cloud? How can you run your VLT sessions effectively using L&D Cloud and help your learners have a good experience? I guess not. Well, in that case, over to Deepak. Thanks so much.
Uh, Thank you, Ravi, for briefing us about LND Cloud. Now we will open the forum for Deepak to answer questions that we have received during the presentation. So now I hope, Deepak, you can see the questions.
Yeah, I can. I'll just take a couple of
Okay,
them right now, just to try to give an essence of things that are being asked here. The
sure, you
questions
can go ahead.
primarily, yeah. So the questions primarily are hovering towards, first of all, how is LMS, LRS, LXP, all these are not a package together, and the second was related to NLP also and AI overall. So just to kind of highlight on few things. See, some of learning management systems have been there for a pretty long time. You have seen the likes of all the brand names that I don't want to kind of talk about. I don't want to be talking about the brands, but point is that you have in your organizations worked with different LMSs, and they don't all the time have everything that is there from an LXP. The idea is that you are able to contextualize the learning, you are able to give a better learning experience. The visuals are very different. It looks at a human-centric learning, so it tries to kind of look at hyper personalization, I would use the word, to your areas of interest. So that's one. But then question was also, how does it do personalization? First of all, you specify your areas of interest and it will only show you content related to that areas of interest. So it has an inbuilt AI ML system which allows you to kind of get the right curated content. So which reduces a lot of burden on the learning and development fraternity to look at curating this content also. Now, also the question related to NLP and AI, these elements put together, I think Alexa or Google, the way you speak to Google right now, you speak to Alexa, somewhere down the line, the whole idea of voice being, used from a learning perspective will really come through. Maybe let's take an example. If you have a person, you're testing a person on a sales talk, and you want to know whether the person has used the right verbiage in that conversation, and this person talks to a machine and the machine tells him or her that, hey, these are the words you could have used better, or these are the words you didn't were not there in your conversation, you didn't speak about the product. Look at the advantage that it brings in. You are getting real life feedback. That is something that's the difference that will make. Okay. Then there's a question on L&D infra. How can infrastructure strategy um, be looked at from an L&D perspective? See, now L&D as a organization is not a siloed organization. You have to work with your office of CIO, office of CTO, and you have to work in a way that in their strategy for learning, you have an equal part to play. When the CTO team decides that they have to bring about a new strategy or go-to-market strategy for the organization, what kind of role L&D will play in it, what kind of new technologies can be implemented in L&D would also needs to be brought in. So your infrastructure strategy should be working along with your OCIO and CTO teams, because you're not the technical guys, you are not the folks who are experts in technology, but they are. But then a good collaboration with them will really bring about good results for you, effective results. I think in interest of time, these are a couple of questions which I thought could be answered here. Uh, Beyond that, back to you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. We shall be sending out the webinar recording to all you participants by Monday. I request you to kindly provide feedback before signing off, which will help us improve the quality of our future events. Thanks again for joining us today. Signing off on behalf of Team Spring People. Hope to see you again for our next Connect LND webinar. Bye bye.